Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Free. I'm Ryan. I'm the pastor here. So good to spend another Saturday evening with you all. Glad you're here. We are a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees, people who feel like they've been kicked around by religion. Maybe you've been kicked around by church. You were told somewhere along the way that you didn't belong with God or the church. And here at Free, we say you absolutely belong, and we're glad you're here. And I know we have people tonight and last week and the week before that and all the other weeks, people from all over the country joining us. From Florida, New York, West Coast, California, down south in Texas and Oklahoma and Arizona. Hey, if you're from the north and I missed you, let us know. Drop us a line. Drop us a comment. Let us know you're here. Let us know how you're doing. And right now, if you're watching and you want to share some hope with your friends, we're going to be talking about hope in the dark. Hit the share button. Share this video with your friends. Let them in on the action. Let them in on a little hope, because I know many of us could use some hope right now. And that's what we're going to dive into tonight. I'm glad you're here, and I want to say thank you early on. Thank you for your very generous giving that you've been part of in this community. Again, from all over the country, it has been overwhelming for Tammy and I to be a part of that and see your giving coming in. And it is your generous giving that helps sustain this community. It keeps us going. Thank you for being a part of that. Much love to you. I want to throw things to Jordan. Eric Shaler, if you're watching tonight, you might know this lady. She's in the house tonight. She's going to tell us what's happening here at Free. And Jordan, take it away.
Hey everybody, just a few announcements tonight. First off, we have Sober Open Mic Night going to be this Wednesday, April 22nd at 7 p.m. So if you have some talents that you want to share, please do so. Join us Wednesday. We'd be happy to have you. Couple things also, we have some new team leads. We've got Andrew. Most of you know him. He's been our home team leader since January and has done awesome. But he is transitioning to be a tech leader. So they are working on a new free app, which is very exciting, and they're hoping to have that up and running by the end of May. So to fill his big shoes, we have Saman. She's going to be the new home team lead. And so if you are wanting to just dive into the community, help serve, please reach out to her. So please welcome them. And lastly, we have some meetings. If you're looking for a meeting, Live the Miracle at 12 p.m. And then we have Afternoon Delight at 2 p.m., which can be found on the 12stepfellowship.com. And that's it. So back to Ryan.
Thank you, Jordan. It's good to have you here tonight. And we should get confirmation if Eric is watching. I hope you're watching, Eric. I hope you're here tonight. Hey, do y'all know why we call this place Free? This community is called Free because all the things that set us free, grace, compassion, love, forgiveness, these are the things that are so freely given by God. It's why we're called Free here in this community. Here's what we do. If you're joining us for the first time, first, welcome. We're glad you're here. Let us know if you're new here. Drop us a line if you're comfortable with it. If not, that's cool too. If you just kind of want to hang out in the back and just see what's happening, you're more than welcome to do that. But the way we start Free is by celebrating. And we do that very intentionally. We don't ignore the darkness and the heartaches, but we save that for the end. Because in this community, as you all know, we can get a lot of the heavy stuff, a lot of the burdens, a lot of the heartaches. So we don't start there. We start with the joy and a celebration, because we have to remember to start there in our lives, to remember what we do have. So for the next 2 minutes, Tammy's going to make her way up here in just a moment, but I want you all to take 2 minutes, and as we do in this community, let us know what you're celebrating, because something really powerful and profound happens when you let others in on your joy. And there's literally hundreds, I could even say thousands of people throughout the week will be watching this, joining you in your celebrating. We are going to clap with you and celebrate with you. So take 2 minutes, 2, not 3, I held up 3. Take 2 minutes and let us know what you're celebrating. Maybe it's a sobriety anniversary. Maybe it's something new in life that you're going through. Maybe it's some good family mojo that you're experiencing, some babies being born, some new whatever. Let us know what you're celebrating. We want to celebrate with you, and we believe God celebrates with us and rejoices with us. 2 minutes. Let us know in the comments. Celebrate with one another, and then we'll come back.
Smile and say, follow me. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Life's too short not to really live. I got a big heart, I can let you in. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. On top of the world. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. On top of the world. Ask me what my secret is, I just smile and say, live for today. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the sun came up and I gotta say, see it in a whole new way. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Yeah. On top of the world. Yeah. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Yeah. On top of the world, yeah. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. People ask me what my secret is. On top of the world, I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. People ask me what my secret is. On top of the world, I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sitting on top of the world.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We were reading through your comments. Tammy's joining us. She's in the house tonight. It's always
What's up,
good to have
friends?
Tammy here. Let's celebrate with y'all. Let's see what we're celebrating. Rob Decker. Y'all might remember Rob. He was here last week, our guest storyteller. Rob says, I'm celebrating Robert Brown and his sobriety.
Awesome.
All right, we're going to celebrate Robert Brown and his sobriety. Thank you, Rob.
There's Andrew piping in from the background over there. 7 days free of nicotine. Been addicted since I was a kid. That's
All right.
huge.
Way to go, Andrew. Woo! Chris Woes or Was. He's celebrating. Andrew is out of the hospital and doing well, and his son Christian is here with us. Okay, I think I know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Andrew's out of the hospital. Yes, our friend Andrew was in the hospital this week. Now you're out. I just talked to you tonight, Andrew. So good to catch up with you.
A lot of you guys know Andrew. He's part of our community, so that's
Yeah.
good news.
Andrew's home, and we're praying for you, Andrew, and we're glad you're home.
Krista, she says 100 days free of alcohol.
Woo!
That's
Way to go,
awesome.
Krista.
Way to go.
Patty says she's celebrating 18 months of sobriety. Way to
Patty.
go, Patty. We're celebrating with you. Thank you for sharing that with us.
And Saman, we rescued a very emancipated cat today. Romy named her Maple. We are not keeping her.
I guess we'll celebrate that, huh?
I love it.
Katie Dunlap is here. She's celebrating. Hi, Katie.
What's up, Katie?
After a 7-year struggle, I finally have my beautiful daughter with me every day and night. She
So
lives with
good.
me full time.
That's really
Man,
big.
so cool. We get to hear those stories all the time of people getting their families back.
Yep.
So congratulations, Katie. Celebrating with you.
That's huge. Landon says 110 days sober and clean. Awesome.
Woo! Landon, way to go, brother. It's good to see you here tonight. Tina says she's celebrating the free V4T Vision for Today community. Seems to be getting closer, and that's a huge gift to me in this season of quarantine.
Yeah.
Man, so good, Tina. Thank you for sharing that. We are celebrating that. So
That's
good.
awesome.
Do we have any more, Danny? Yes, we have one more.
All right.
Suzanne.
Suzanne. All right. Hello from AZ. Susie and Kenny are celebrating being healthy and that all family members are safe. Thank you, Tammy and Pastor Ryan, for your ministry. You're welcome. We appreciate you just as much.
Yes, good to have you all from Arizona. I hope you all are doing well. All right,
Fun.
thank you for joining us, Tammy. Thank you all for celebrating with us. It's always so fun to begin.
Thanks
With
for letting me celebrate with you.
Yeah.
I'll see you guys
Thank you
later.
all. All right. We'll see you in just a bit. All right, y'all. So here's the deal. I'm going to scoot over a little bit. We are starting a new series tonight, brand new series. It's a 3-week series, and this thing is called Hope in the Dark. And it's 3 weeks on. We want to engage the question of when life leaves you with pain and brokenness, is there hope? When life leaves you with pain and brokenness, is God still good? And so it's 3 weeks. The first night I want to engage with you the idea of getting honest with God and waiting. That can be uncomfortable, getting honest and waiting. And then next week, we're going to talk about wrestling with God and finding a new identity. And then that third week, we're going to explore this idea of hope in the dark. It's a big call to humility. What does it look like to be humble? What does humility look like as we're searching for hope in the dark? So here's a little video, 50-second video for you to kind of get settled in wherever you are. I invite you to take some quiet time, get settled in, and then we'll come back.
You know, pain is a lonesome place. I don't have to tell you, do I? It'll drop a rock in your stomach right through your pounding heart. And when your knees are so weak, you hit the ground and you finally realize you don't got this. Well, now you might just make it. You see, the tallest tree may not weather the storm, but its roots do. So dig in, stand up, and let the wind blow. Because there's hope.
So we are starting this new series tonight, Hope in the Dark, 1 of 3 tonight. And I have to be honest with y'all, this is a really personal one for me. It was a few years ago that I started really working through my story, and it was so clear to me that God was saying, Ryan, don't waste your pain. Use your pain, your struggle, your story to proclaim hope in the dark. See, when I was 17 years old, I knew I wanted to be a pastor. And see, growing up in high school, I got the label of the good kid. I was a leader in the church. I was a leader in the church youth group. I was the good kid. My brother, Brandon, who was 3 years older than me, he took upon the label of the bad kid. He battled drug and alcohol addiction. He was in and out of the county jail. And see, later in my high school career, somewhere along the way, he got sober, clean and sober. And I left Missouri, where I was living in Missouri. I grew up in Missouri. I left there when I graduated high school and went up to Michigan to a small Bible school that I had never been to. I just went for the first time and started attending there because I was studying to be a pastor. And I was there for 1 month. And Mom called me on a Saturday morning. I'll never forget what she said and how she said it. It was with the most broken voice you can imagine. She said, Ryan, you need to come home. Brandon was just killed in a car accident. And man, I got in my car and I made the 9-hour journey back home to Missouri, and I stayed home for a week. I stayed home for the funeral, and then I came back to Michigan and I finished out the semester. And then I went back home to Missouri after the semester. I spent the summer back home. And y'all, my life was beginning to become a wreck, a total mess. And after summer, I went back to Michigan to start a new semester. And I was there for 2 weeks before I figured out in my life, this isn't working. Like in this small fundamentalist Bible school, I could no longer take the pat answers that Christianity was giving to me in my time of suffering and in my time of grief. And so on that morning, I was in Old Testament class, and it was an hour and a half, a 90-minute class. I left in the first 5 minutes. I walked to my dorm room. I packed up my entire dorm room and put it in my car before that class was over, so within that 90 minutes. And as I was getting into my car, the dean of the school walks out to the parking lot, and he says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Man, I'm leaving." And he said, "Well, when are you going to come back?" And I said, "Dude, I ain't coming back." And he said to me, "Dude, you can't just leave." Now, I was like 19, 20 years old. In all my brokenness and all my infinite wisdom, I looked at him and I said something to the effect of, "Yeah, well, watch me." And I got in my car and I made again the 9-hour trek back home to Missouri. And as I was driving down the highway, I stopped at a gas station and I bought a pack of cigarettes. I didn't even smoke, but I smoked on that day. And I was driving home and smoking cigarettes, and I was shouting out to God, and I told God how much I hated him. And I swore to God that I would never be a pastor. I told God how messed up he was. God, I'm never going to be a pastor. And God, you don't know how to manage things. Watch this. Yeah, let me know how that works out for you. Watch this. And see, it was during that time in my life that I really started finding comfort in the bottle. I went deep into my addiction, deep into my love affair with booze. And see, I found out that I could black out and numb out and pass out in all my jadedness, all my anger, all my pain. I mean, have you ever been so angry with God, you shake your fist at him and say, "You weren't there. I thought you were better than this." And God, you know what your problem is? Your problem is you don't freaking listen. Because see, we prayed for Brandon all the time. I prayed that God would rescue him, and I was so certain that was going to happen. I mean, have you ever cried out to God in that kind of brutal honesty? You see, one of my favorite spiritual teachers says that prayer is the act of ripping open your rib cage so that your heart can breathe again. Now, some of you, you might have this image of God, and maybe it was the one that was handed down to you, that to stand before God, you have to pretty yourself up. You have to pretty up your language. You have to have all your ducks in a row. You have to give God your Sunday best. And the truth is, God doesn't give a damn about you presenting your Sunday best, because God wants you, the real you, all of you, even you when you are at your worst. So I want to share with you a prayer. It's a conversation between a man and God, and it comes from this Old Testament book, or the Hebrew Bible book, called Habakkuk. And see, Habakkuk was a prophet. And prophets were those who spoke to people, their own people, giving them warnings against injustices and abuses of power. And they would say things like, "Yo, we can't keep trampling on the poor and get away with it. We can't keep committing these acts of violence and expect God to turn a blind eye." You see, prophets spoke to their people on behalf of God, but Habakkuk was a bit different. Because see, Habakkuk spoke to God on behalf of people. And keep in mind, y'all, this was written thousands of years ago, but his complaint to God sounds a lot like our complaints today. God, you know what your problem is? Your problem is you don't freaking listen. He was writing this during a time when these people called the Babylonians were becoming the world's superpower. And what you need to know about the Babylonians are they were brutal, violent, ruthless in their ways. And Habakkuk essentially cries out to God and says, "What's up with this, God? Where are you? Why are you letting this happen? Why don't you listen? This is hopeless." So I want to throw just the first 5 verses of Habakkuk up on the screen. This comes from the first chapter. The first 5 verses is where we're going to hang out just for the next couple of minutes. Habakkuk says, "How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen, or cry out to you violence, but you do not save? Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Destruction and violence are before me. there is strife and conflict abounds. And let's just stop there for just a moment. I mean, have you ever felt like this? You say to yourself, man, I'm trying to do the right thing here, God. I'm trying to stay on the path, but God, the problem is you don't listen. You don't know how to manage things. Where are you? Man, I'm done with you. Forget your will. That doesn't work. Let's work out my will. My will be done. I want you to take the next 30 seconds, and I want you all to engage this question. When have you felt hopeless? Like God simply wasn't there for you? I mean, maybe there was a time in your life where you felt betrayed or wounded by people. Or did it feel like everything was falling apart and you took on the attitude of, well, why bother? Well, why bother trying to do anything good? Or maybe it felt like you were just simply losing your way and you wanted to give up on the spiritual stuff and go back to doing it your own way. So I want you to take the next 30 seconds and just engage in this community. Danny's going to throw up a little 30-second timer with some music in the background and let people get a glimpse into your life. Get a glimpse into other people's lives in this community. Y'all have modeled in the past, I mean, you do it every week, that community is what happens here with you all. It's more than just a church building. It's more than space. It's what happens with actual people. So take a moment and engage that question. When is a time in your life when you felt hopeless, like God simply wasn't there? And go ahead and put it in the comments. I know 30 seconds goes fast, doesn't it? And for some of you, this is like the deepest stuff in your life, the deepest stuff on your heart. But my brothers and sisters, God can handle your anger, your doubts, your questions, your pain, your brokenness, and maybe God even wants this from you. Because see, this isn't an act of walking away from God, but it's going deeper into the struggle. And maybe we have to do this before we can get to the place of grace, where we're willing to actually listen, to a place of powerlessness. That's what it is. It's a place of powerlessness. Because see, in verse 5, God responds to Habakkuk. And I want to throw verse 5 on a screen for you. It's just a couple lines. God says, Habakkuk, look at the nations. Danny, do we have this on the screen? Verse 5? I think we do. There it is. There it is. Look at the nations. Habakkuk, look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed. For I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe even if you were told. Now you can imagine what Habakkuk must have been thinking, right? Come on, God, what do you mean? What do you mean you're going to do something new here? What do you mean you're going to do something in my days and I'm going to be amazed? God, I just don't understand. And this makes sense, doesn't it? Because see, I'm sitting here trying to imagine what I might think if when I was angry and broken and couldn't put down the bottle, if God came along and said, here's the deal, Ryan. I ain't going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm going to do something in your life that if I told you about it, you would not believe me. Yeah. Like what, God? Like what? And can you imagine? Well, Ryan, you are going to be a pastor. No, I'm not, God. I told you I wasn't going to do that. I gave up on that stuff. No, Ryan, you are going to be a pastor. And you are going to stumble along the way. And things are going to get much worse for you, and you're going to come to the end of yourself, and it's going to be really painful. And in that moment, you will see that I never left you and that I am the true source. And then, Ryan, get this. You're going to sit in a room full of other crazy recovering alcoholics, and they are going to show you how powerful my love is. They are going to love you back to life. They are going to love you when you didn't know how to love yourself. And dude, you are going to know a new life. That marriage that you weren't sure was going to make it, hold tight, my boy, because I'm about to make all things new. And you're going to have this family that loves you like crazy, and you're going to love and you're going to love them like crazy. But Ryan, my boy, I ain't stopping there. Because see, I need you to keep watching, because I'm about to blow your mind. You and your wife are going to start this new church, a new spiritual community for addicts and loved ones of addicts and spiritual refugees. And your job is to remind them how much they are loved and to give some hope in the dark. I mean, you see what I mean? If God would have told me that then, I would have said, no way. Not me. Man, you've got the wrong guy. Plus, God, I'm not even sure I like you. I'm not even sure I trust you. See, I'm convinced. I am absolutely convinced that God will transform your pain, will redeem your pain so that you can give hope to others if you let God in. And you know what's beautiful about the rest of the book of Habakkuk? He keeps engaging God. He keeps crying out. He stays connected. And guess what? God doesn't give up on the conversation. God keeps engaging. God does not give up on Habakkuk, and God does not give up on you. You see, my brothers and sisters, in the midst of your crying out, your anger, your pain, your brokenness, are you able to hold on? Hang tight. Keep engaging God. Are you able to keep getting brutally honest with God? And are you able to stay put and maybe even listen? To listen. Because maybe, just maybe, God is about to do something in your life, something so incredible that if God were to tell you, you would not believe it. You see, the act of you crying out to God, the act of God welcoming conversation, connecting with you even when you're at your worst, the act of God never giving up on you, that's grace. That's grace. And the act of God placing people in your life who will love you when you did not know how to love yourself, when you still don't know how to love yourself, that's hope in the dark. And so I want to give y'all one more question just to end our this time together. And I want you to again take 30 seconds and again give people a glimpse into your life. Let's be community together and engage this question. In your life, where have you experienced hope in the dark? Was it through family and friends? Was it through community? Church groups, recovery groups, people with similar life experience? Was it in seeing God and spirituality in new ways? So again, take 30 seconds and engage the question. Comment below, where in your life have you experienced hope in the dark? All right, welcome back, y'all. I'm glad you are engaging. I'm glad you're still here. I want to introduce you each week during this. Every single week we have a storyteller, a guest storyteller. But for the next 3 weeks, we're going to concentrate on stories of hope in the dark. And so I want to introduce you to my friend Mark Jordan. When I was thinking about this series last week, a comment that he made came to my mind, and we were in a meeting together, he said something about who God was to him. And he said, man, if I need to cry out to God, if I need to like get in my car and shout out to God and curse God out, that's who God is for me, and God can handle it. And I was like, yeah, man, that's who God is so real to this dude. And I hope God is becoming more and more real to you. But I want to invite Mark here to share his experiences of a recovering addict and also the loved one of an addict. And so I want you all to help me welcome Mark Jordan. All right, Mark Jordan is in the house. Mark, I'm glad you're here, dude.
Thanks for inviting me, Ryan. I'm glad I'm here too.
Yeah, dude. Welcome to Free. So I want to jump right into things because we only have a few minutes together, and I want to hear some of your addiction and recovery story. I want to hear about you being a loved one of an addict and what life is like for you there, and where you find hope, where you found hope along the way. But let's start with just because I was fascinated by it, and it was a pretty simple comment. I don't even know if you remember making it, but who is God to you? And what's the spiritual journey for you?
Well, now, it's become apparent that God is, I need him to run my life. I've been disqualified from that job. So,
Yep.
I start my spiritual journey, was in a lot of ways a painful one, but I was given a introduction, straight from the cradle. I was cradle Catholic and grew up in the church, went to a parochial school, was an altar boy, went to a Jesuit high school, went to a Lutheran college. And so I had always had this religious education behind me, but I never was willing to, like when they talk about turn your will and your life over to God, turn your eyes towards that. Like nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to run it my way. And, and I was too afraid to even come close to that stuff, because the lure of what was out there was just too appealing to me, and I wanted to be in control.
So at some point, you were introduced to the 12 steps.
Mm-hmm.
And what you told me was the 12 steps had a way of making God so much bigger for you, introducing you to maybe a new conception of God.
Yeah. I was actually one of those guys that was relieved when I walked in. I was at my bottom the first time, and I was at a place where I hated who I was. I couldn't do anything that I wanted to get done, and I knew God was there and he had power, but I didn't have a relationship with him at all. I didn't think it was somebody that wanted to hear what I had to say, because I'd been taught these things and I knew this stuff, and I could talk a good Bible game and talk spiritually about this, but I just didn't have that connection. So I walked into the 12 steps, I walked into the rooms AA, and on the wall, and people were sharing about their experiences with God, and I was really pleased with that. I was actually really stoked because, and then the way they introduced it too and presented it was, it didn't have to be my parents' God. It didn't have to be, this other community's God. It was a God personal to you. And it was just a higher power. And I definitely believe that there's something that's binding us all together.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tap into it. But then through this program and coming in, it was, hey, there's a power there, but let's not really worry about the details. Let's just do the work and see what develops.
Yeah, man, I love what you said. You think there's something bigger binding us together.
Yeah.
And I don't know about y'all, but that's certainly been my experience of, you have these moments along the way and you find them, I have a lot more of these moments in recovery where it's like something bigger is happening than just me. There's something bigger holding us all together,
Right.
binding us together. And if it's just you, well, we've got a big problem on our hands,
Yeah,
right?
I'm
We
screwed,
make a mess of it. As you said, we are disqualified from that.
Well, when I first came in, I wasn't even sure that I couldn't, stop drinking. I couldn't control it. I had been blessed without really getting in trouble.
Yeah.
But I was spiritually bankrupt, as they talk about in this program, and coming in and seeing that first step, there's two parts
What's
to
the
it.
first step for people not
Okay.
familiar with the 12 steps? What's the first
So
step?
the first step is we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. Well, I wasn't sure about the powerlessness part, but I could definitely get with the part where my life was unmanageable. Like I couldn't manage anything. I was trying to hold all these things together, and I, um, kept messing up deadlines, kept messing up relationships, kept messing up anything I touched, and got to the point where it's like, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this, and I find myself doing it again that later. I was like, I'm not going to get drunk, and I found myself drunk over and over and over again.
Yeah, and I know for you, Mark, you were sober for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then you went back out and picked up a drink.
Yep.
And got sober again in 2014, right?
I went out in 2014 and then came back in 2015.
2015. And when we were talking the other day, you talked about this idea of you would surrender but then take it back. Surrender, then take it back. And
Right.
walk through with people, because I want people to hear some hope in all of this. Like, where's the hope in surrender and taking it back?
The fact that he kept taking me back and kept giving me another chance, like the fact that his grace and what he showed in my life was boundless. Like the fact that I kept, I was like you, man. I was young. As I was coming up all the way through, I was expecting God to do stuff for me, and what I wanted. And of course, he was doing stuff for me. I had great surroundings. I had a great upbringing, but and I was protected. I got out of 2 DUIs by out talking a cop. I rolled a truck and was able to get out of that. And I still thought that I had control. It was just bad luck, right? Because I really didn't have any of these big bottoms, but or not big bottoms, but I hadn't gotten in trouble. But the fact is, so I got to the point where, I had nothing else to do. I knew that the truth is, like, if I got to a point and I got to the truth is, yes, I am, I can't control when I put substances in my body. I can't control what happens or how much I take after that. And then the mental part comes in, and then it just, whines on me until it's like, oh, it's a good idea, And so I kept trying to take that power back, and I'd get in pain, I'd get in misery, and then I go, okay, God, I need to turn my life over to you again, and things would get better. And then I thought it was me, and I took credit for being such a good guy and doing this or that, but it's I kept taking the credit back, and every time I did that, I'd make mistakes, I'd be embarrassed. There's something happened with my life that was unacceptable and or just painful, either to me and especially those ones around me.
So I'm reading some of the comments coming up, and y'all, if you have questions or comments you want to throw towards Mark, feel free to put them in, and I'll try to ask them as we go. And he'll be hanging out later, and you can engage some of these questions. But Landon said that never-ending cycle of hopelessness, emotional roller coaster. I think that's what happens when it's like what you talked about. You kept trying to do it on your own, and you kept trying to give an attaboy to Mark.
Right. It was much more about the ego and much more about the fact that, I wanted to run the show. And if my model of how things were going to work, if that came to fruition, then, hey, things were okay. And if that changed a little bit, then, I didn't handle it very well, to tell you the truth.
So I think if I'm hearing you, it's this idea of there's hope in the hopelessness. There's hope in the powerlessness. There's hope in the surrender. What was that moment like when you came back?
Well, when I came back in, this is where your and my story is really similar. I was thinking of it. I got to the point where I was miserable again. I was hiding it from my family. My wife knew, but I was hiding it from the rest of my family, and just miserable, and hated people around me and what was going on, and just upset with where I was at and what I was doing. Then my brother-in-law had good 6 years of sobriety and helped a lot of guys, and he went back out, except he ended up not coming back in. He ended up overdosing while he was out, and my father-in-law looked over to me, and he knew, and I thought I was hiding it, but he knew, and he's like, so you ready to come back in yet? And and I was, and that was a part where, you know, I looked at this and I was like, there's a yet for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely, you know, and it probably wouldn't be the same way that Tabor went out, but it would have been wrecking a car. It would have been, you know, it'd been tearing my family apart. It'd been losing my kids. It'd been losing my
Yeah.
wife and my marriage and everything else. And so I came back in and got right into it because I knew that this way worked. And, you know, I went out, I had the idea that crossed my head is like, oh, maybe you just needed to grow up. I have 10 years. I got sober when I was 25.
You're more mature now. You can handle
Yeah,
it.
I can do it, you know? and, you know, and so, but that tragedy in my family, plus the way I was feeling and what my family needed from me at that time, it all kind of lined up to push me back in through the doors.
Yeah. So I want to shift gears with you for a little bit because I know you're also the loved one of an addict, and we keep our categories pretty simple here: of addicts, loved ones of addicts, spiritual refugees. So I know you're technically a recovering alcoholic like me.
That was my drug of choice, but I mean, at the same time, it's like I wasn't too biased.
You weren't picky. You didn't
I
discriminate.
had the ones I liked, and that was mainly it. But yeah.
So your wife has been in rehab now for 21 days. 21 days.
21 to
it's only 3
weeks.
weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only 3 weeks, but it's a long 3 weeks.
Absolutely, especially now.
Yeah. Tell us what that's been like, and where's the hope in the dark there?
What that's been like is the last 10 months, a year of our marriage, of our life has been hell. It's been hard. It's been full of blame and shame and confusion, denial. You know, and the hope with that is, you know, prayers worked for us, and my wife's in rehab right now. Like, she's doing what it takes to keep our family together. She's doing her side, and you know, again, looking at these things, hey, I didn't get what I wanted, but I get what I need. And the fact that I can be grateful for some of these things today, and I can take a look at, okay, I'm a single parent right now with 2 kids that are smart and energetic, and I can't really take them anymore. So what do I got to do and be responsible for all that without somebody else there? But a big part of what was going on and with me through this process that really helped was a couple weeks, about her first weekend, you know, or maybe 10 days, I was able to talk to her some more, and I got to see her, and then I got in the fear of, you know, she's just going right back to her old kind of ways and withdrawing of some stuff, and got real upset. I got worried about her. Like, if, you know, it's that old control factor of, hey, do what I'm telling you, and things will work out. And I sat on my bed. I just got off a meeting, and I was like, all right, God, you know, I heard somebody else share in a meeting or on a speaker tape talk about God hasn't brought him this far just to let him go now. And so I sat down and I was like, all right, God, you got my back or you don't. And I got out of the way, and things are working out. And it doesn't matter what I want to do or say anyway. It's not my program. It's not my work. She's got to do the work. I'd love to take it and do it all for her, but that's not how this works. Nobody could have done it for me.
You know, I was thinking as you're talking, that idea of when we're talking about getting honest with God and waiting, the waiting, that is not a passive act. The waiting is actually that act of saying, I can't control this thing. I actually have to let it go. I have to relinquish the control here and realize it's not mine. I mean, you just talked about that in such a helpful category. It is not, if you hear that word wait, well, just trust God and wait. No. It's an action step. It is not a passive, just sit back and wait. Right. And that's what you're doing right now, right?
Well, and like that waiting for me was, it was full of some worry. It was full of talking to other people and reaching out for support and from fellowship. It was just praying. It was, you know, but it was also, you know, like an experiment, you know, in a way too, of just like, hey, what if I let it go and let God? What if I act like God is in charge of this? And
what a powerful idea.
There were some very peaceful, you know, there were some really good moments that came out of that. And the fact too of just saying, hey, like, of realizing that God works in mysterious ways, you know, and it's a lot of ways that, you know, are. I know that's such a cliche.
Yeah.
I know it is, man. And I'm sorry for anybody that like hates those cliches and what's going on. But it's like, I don't know how else to explain it. You know, there's things that have happened that I thought were awful and they were great, you know. And if like there again, if I was in charge and if I was the one saying, hey, you know, like I want it to be my way, like it would have messed up, man. It would have been even close.
Complaint. God, you don't know how to manage things.
Right.
Let me manage it. I'll do better.
I mean, I don't have a good track record, but I know I'll get better this time.
Yeah, this time I'll do it better.
Yeah.
Yes.
And no, I do believe in you, and I'm trying to be good, but I don't understand what's happening. And then with patience, with that time of trying to, the biggest thing I'm trying to do in that time I'm waiting is look who else I can help. And luckily I have 2 little kids at home that you know, make it very apparent that I need to help them and what's going on.
They need you.
But
they need sober dad.
So and same with other people in this program. And you know, and that's how I was able to get through some of these things. And you know, and it's simple as that. There's a lot of things that come out, and you know, we as humans, you know, we're created pretty simple, but we really try to complicate it. You know, and then this program and some of these other cliches, it's as easy as making a decision to say, okay, God, you got this. I'm gonna try and back off. And you know, but what do we do? But like, we're supposed to be in control. So how do I handle this? What's the one thing I can do? And there's not, you know.
And you said it so well, and I know it comes from somewhere, but it's just a great reminder. We always need this reminder, but you ended our conversation this way the other day. You said, I had to come to a place where I realized that either God is everything or God is nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. And the hard part about that, the real part about that is when my wife finally admitted she was an alcoholic and went to a meeting. And, you know, then like the veil of denial came open and I was like, oh, you know, and like, I knew, that didn't even dawn on me. I thought it was some other things going, but when that happened, it also clicked right away. It's like, I'm powerless. Yeah. You know, my parents were in Al-Anon before I came in. You know, I had no idea what that was going. And
help people that don't know what Al-Anon is.
Al-Anon's a great program for loved ones of alcoholics and addicts that don't it's a family disease, right? And so it's like, if you have an alcoholic in your life or a parent or a loved one or an addict, this is a program that you can do to get yourself spiritually fit in the face of this horrible, insidious disease.
And I know there's some people involved in Al-Anon in this community on this. I'm looking at some comments right now. So if you're looking for help, there's lots of people in this community that can help you connect to Al-Anon and what it's like to be the loved one of. Mm-hmm. I was just reading through some of the. Christy Ruff says, yeah, it makes me think waiting is faith. Yes. Surely, Colela says, yes, God knows exactly what we need, even when it's not what we want. Yeah, this stuff, not always easy, but it's pretty simple.
Right.
When we
it's the hardest thing it's the hardest thing I've ever done, you know, and the more that I'm into it and the more things are happening now, especially with where with the whole COVID-19 thing and with my wife being in rehab and I have to, I got furloughed, I don't have a job, and, you know, it's a daily action of having to sit there and wake up and say, okay, here's the things I've done in the past, and it doesn't work. So how about do these things that do work? Yeah. And and there's some days where I'm like, no, you know, or I'm busy, or this gets in the way, or that, or I think I know better. And
let me take it back.
And
let me manage things.
And so now it's gotten to the point where it's like I was always looking for, okay, I'm gonna go get fit, get in shape, and then I don't have to work out again. I'm gonna be in shape, and that's not how anything in our human existence works. You know, it's a maintaining thing, and it's a change. And I'm not a guy that had spiritual like awakening. I'm like where all of a sudden a big, you know, I saw a glowing light in the sky, or I was struck by a lightning bolt. It took time, but through that time I was able to look back and say, like, wow, like there's things, like it's pretty amazing. Like I'm not a drunk anymore. I have a relationship with my parents. My parents aren't crying that I wrecked a car, rolled a car, or worrying about, what I'm
Yeah.
doing. And so that's been a big blessing. And I've been able to pass it on to some of my kids too, and what they're doing, and
Yeah.
and like realize, hey, this is a family disease, and we got to unify and come together, or else, it's and I got to try and teach them.
Yeah.
That's still happening. We're going with that, but
All right, Mark.
so
I'm glad you came in tonight. Thank you for sharing your story of hope in the dark.
yeah, thanks for having me,
Will you
man.
stick around a little bit in the
Absolutely.
back? And people, if you all have questions for Mark or you want to show him some love, do so. He's going to be engaging in the back.
One thing I think you and I talked about earlier, I just want to bring it back to,
Yeah.
is if you are struggling with somebody that's a loved one in your family that's sick, um, you know, you're powerless over that. Like, it's hard to sit there and say, it's in God's hands. It really is. So if you have people that are going around burning bridges, and you're going and fixing those bridges and putting them back together as fast as you can, stop.
Yeah.
Let them
Good
hit the
word.
bottom as fast as you can, because it's just prolonging the inevitable. Oh, but what if this happens, or what if that happens? Like, you don't have control over that either. I can't,
It's the
I
way.
can't save, I can help a lot of people, and I could not help my wife. I needed to get out of the way.
We have a good question.
What's the question?
We got a good question from Tina. It's on screen.
Oh, I see it. Yes.
So I think that
Tina says, "What do you trust when you have lost trusting God?"
Ooh. The fact that, oh man, that's a tough question. That's a journey that I don't think I can have the one answer for anybody. But every time, um, every time I've looked into the solution and turned it over, and just tried and said, okay, God, let's just try one thing. Things have, it's been a slow process, but things have gotten better. And I look at kids, I look at my little kids, and I think that, and we live here in Colorado, and there's things in nature that are beautiful. And basically the other part of that is, like, who am I to be that arrogant? And I'm not trying to, throw it back at you, but the thing is, it's like, my little pea brain of what's happening and thinking I can try to understand and wrap all these things together. No, there's never going to be a perfection.
I
I'm never
think
going
it's
to
the
get
place
there.
you come to where you say, "I have not done a very good job at managing things." If it's
Right.
not trusting God, what is it? It can't be myself. I mean, I've made a mess of it. It can't
Right.
be right. It's
Right. And it can't be other people. Like, the thing is the realization that everything immaterial that I tried to fill,
Yeah.
like, and make me feel better, whether it was people, girls, or
30
substances,
seconds.
okay, whatever that was, they're all limited, and they're all gonna have a false belief that's gonna get me to a point where, no, like, it's telling me a lie, and it doesn't fulfill it. The only thing that does is spirituality, because that's unlimited, and the more you divide it, the more you give it away, the more you have. And
That's a
where
good
I'm
word,
at.
man. We've got to cut it off
All
there
right.
because
Thanks,
we're
guys.
running out of time. But if y'all have more questions for Mark, feel free to put them in the comments. He's going to get back to you. He'll be. Thank you so much
You're
for being
welcome.
here, brother.
Thanks, everybody. God bless.
Love you, dude. All right, y'all. Thank you, Mark. Thank you all for engaging tonight with our storyteller. I'm going to, you know what? We're going to throw it to how we end things around here, and that is, we end with heartaches. We end with giving our burdens. We lift them up to God. We trust that God hears our prayers. And you know what? Here at Free, we actually do pray for y'all, and I know you all pray for each other. You check in on each other throughout the week here on Facebook, on phone calls and Zooms, and I'm just so grateful to be a part of this community in order to pray for you. And we do have a prayer team here. Jason leads that team. Thank you, Brother Jason, if you're watching. And there's others on that team. In order to know how to pray for you, how to encourage you, how to lift you up, we've got to know what burdens you're carrying. So this is our time in our community where we actually be community together. So we're going to give you 2 minutes, just like we did with celebrations. Lift up your heartaches. Let people in on your life. Let people know. Let this community know what you're struggling with, which burdens you're carrying. And we will lift you in prayer throughout the week, and this community will lift you and encourage you. So take 2 minutes and then we'll come back together.
Hey y'all, welcome back. Thank you for sharing some of your heartaches with us. Ryan and I are going to take a minute to share some with you guys.
Yeah, because there's something powerful about lifting these up together so that we all as a community can be a part of it.
Yeah,
You want the first one?
I'll take it.
All right.
Alyssa, my grandma Jenny, went to be with the Lord last night. She was 97 years old and lived a beautiful and long life, but will be dearly missed. Yeah, that's still tough, no matter what, Alyssa.
Prayers
Thanks
for you,
sharing.
Alyssa. Ben says, I want to pray for a friend trying to get and stay sober with another alcoholic partner who is struggling in recovery. Thank you for sharing that, Ben. Prayers for your friend and prayers for you too. Thanks for sharing that with us. Prayers.
Jason, good to see you, Jay. Please pray for my friend Kyler. He's been locked up since he was 16, 6 years now, except for a few weeks in between. He's up for parole next month.
Prayers for Kyler. And Jason, by the way, keep that up just a minute, Danny. Jason is, I said this on Facebook yesterday, friend and colleague of mine. He's a pastor up in Montana. If you go to my Facebook page and scroll down a couple posts, he shares his story. Jason, too, is in recovery. He's got a really powerful story. PBS Montana did a story on him. I think it's a 7-minute story. Thank you for sharing that with me, Jason, so I could share it with others. Love you, brother. Glad you're here.
He shared that free a few,
Yeah, he was one of our
maybe a year
storytellers
ago.
about a year ago.
Yeah.
We're going to have you back, dude. All right, who else we got?
From Pam, Thursday, Sam's driver's license showed up in my mailbox with a note wrapped around it that said, found in Marina Del Rey. It feels haunting to look at it. Please continue to pray for him.
Yeah.
Prayers continue, my friend.
Sam is Pamela's son,
Yeah.
so prayers for your son, Pamela.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that with us. Chris says, this is Laura. My parents are planning on returning from Florida on May 2nd, and I'm worried about their trip back home to Colorado here in a few short weeks.
Yeah.
Prayers for your parents, Laura. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yep, we appreciate your parents a ton too. Thanks for sharing. Robert, I truly want sobriety and want all of Jesus. Pray for me.
Prayers for you, Robert, on the road to recovery. Landon, I want to pray for the McGurk family, lost former college buddy Adam McGurk, and the family of Trista, a sister in recovery who recently lost her battle. Prayers for those families and friends. Yes, thank you for sharing that with us, Landon.
Andrea, may sound irrelevant, but 2 neighbors are daily putting darkness into my light. Need prayers to not get defeated. You got it.
Prayers for you, Andrea. Yes. Tina says, please pray that I would continue to trust God in this long, painful season, learning to be a single mama. that I would trust He has a bigger plan. Prayers for you, Tina. Thank you for sharing that heartache with us of being a single mama and all that life entails.
That's hard stuff right now, for sure.
Yeah,
On top of everything
yeah.
else.
Prayers for you, Tina.
Yeah. Elizabeth, please continue to pray for my friend Terrence's family. We will put Terrence in our prayers. Thank you.
All right, one or two more? Is
That's
that it? All right. Y'all can keep, that doesn't mean you have to stop sharing your heartaches. You can keep going, and this community will engage you throughout the next couple of days, throughout the week. And we just know this is a holy, sacred time in our community to set it apart, to share our burdens.
Yep.
And we believe that God hears our prayers. God always hears the cries of the people.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Tammy, for joining us again. Y'all, I want to invite up my friend and brother Lou, because, see, we need to talk about the wagon. And I was hoping maybe, just maybe, Lou could tell us about the wagon. Do y'all know the story of the wagon? I've told this story many, many times. Now it's Lou's turn to tell the story of the wagon. Lou, give us a good word, my brother.
You guys hear me? Hear me all right? All
Oh, yeah, we're
right.
getting love.
Well, it's good to be here. Well, you know, it's good to see you. It's good to see everybody. And it's beautiful to be in front of all of you guys. I miss you guys so much. I think,
Yes.
you know, hopefully when this comes to an end, I just can't wait to embrace everybody and see everybody here. So, you know, I'm going to tell the story of the wagon with Ryan sitting here. So this is going to be awkward, but
It's going to be beautiful.
It'll yeah. So, you know, when Ryan visited the LA Rescue Mission, which is the biggest rescue mission in the world, you know, he was going through their museum and he saw the wagon, you know, and everybody wants to know, what's the wagon? It's my favorite story. And so back in the day, you know, in the 1800s, right?
Late 1800s,
Late
yeah.
1800s, they used to take this wagon full of food and clothing and drinks and Bibles, and they would take them into the roughest parts of LA, and they would hand them out, you know, and what they would offer hope, you know, and they would be giving. And on the way back to the rescue mission, they would pick up those that wanted to a place of salvage, a place of safety, and they would put everybody on the wagon. And we all know what happens.
What happens when they fall off the wagon?
Oh my goodness, you get a bunch of drunks on a wagon, a bunch of people on the wagon, they fall off. And what do? We reach our hands out and we pick them back up, and we take them to a safe place. And so that's the image here at Free, is the wagon. And
Our
I think
central image.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And so that's the story of the wagon, you know, and I love it, you know. And so, and here at Free, you know, there's we give back, you know, and the donations here is what keeps this place is going, and we love your donations, and there's ways to give. And so the first way is up on the screen. Is text give to the number on the screen and follow the prompts. It'll send you a text back, and you can insert the number in there and send you directions. It's pretty simple. And then the other way to do it is visit the website at freespiritualcommunity.com, and you enter the number in there, and you know, and feel free to donate $1, $5, $100, anything you feel to donate benefits the Free Spiritual Community, and it helps addicts, loved one of addicts, and spiritual refugees, and carry the message here in the community. So it's a beautiful thing that we're doing here.
Thank you, Lou, man. You just nailed that. Will you stay up here with me
I will.
and help us pray?
Yeah,
Help us
I will.
pray. Pray with us.
I can help you pray.
Thank you for saying that good word. And it truly is. I said at the beginning, it is your generous giving that keeps this ministry. Even in this coronavirus time, we are growing in some really incredible ways. I can't wait to share some things with you guys in the next few weeks, but it is your generous giving that helps sustain us. It helps keep us going in the direction of loving addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees, as my brother Lou said. So what we'd like to do with you now is just take a time and close in prayer. Some of you know this prayer, the Lord's Prayer. Some of you may not. So we're going to throw it on the screen for you. And yeah, quiet yourself and let's close together with prayer, shall we?
Yes.
All right, Lou, you want to lead us?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. All right, so good to be with you all tonight. So glad you joined us. Remember to share this with your friends if you think it would provide some hope in the dark. It was fun to be with you for part 1, getting honest with God and waiting as an act of faith. Next week, we're going to come back for part 2, and part 2 is wrestling with God and finding a new identity. I can't wait to be with y'all. Have a good week and be well.